that you love. What was the biggest obstacle for you in launching Hawaii Real? And I think real quick, I want to make a comment. I was taking a shower this morning and I was like, man, EO was like a couple years ahead of this.
Oh, you're thinking about me in the shower?
I was, bro.
It's Valentine's Day.
Hey, I was using my own soap brand too. But yeah, no, I was taking showers where I have my most profound thoughts. And I was like, man, like I recognized that EO was really on the curve of this podcasting thing. And so I'm seeing a curve here that applies more to me and me trying to do my own thing. And so what was the biggest hurdle in you like launching it and doing the thing?
Hurdle. So my biggest hurdle, and it continues to this day, is finding guests. And I've always wanted to do the podcast with an interview style where it's a guest that I can talk to and question and hear their story. Not necessarily interested in my story, even though people are like, dude, you have such an interesting story. You should share some more and blah, blah, blah. So I think along the way, the biggest hurdle has been getting people on the show and finding scheduling conflicts and stuff like that, and just getting them on the show. As far as like starting the podcast and everything, once I got an idea like this in my head, so my creative process is this: if I get an idea in my head that I like and I think I want to look at, or I want to buy, or I want to pay money for, or to see, or something like that, I look for it on the internet. I Google it, YouTube it, whatever. If I can find it, great. I might be a customer. If I can't find it, I might have an idea to create it, right? So that led into my original product for Rollerfly. I would have loved to have just been able to buy a device like Rollerfly, my hockey device. For anybody that doesn't know, rollerfly.com. I would have loved to have been a customer and buy it instead of going through the heartache of creating it. But it didn't exist. It just didn't exist in the world. There was a need for it. I needed it. And I knew if I needed it, somebody else needed it.
Sure.
So create it. With the podcast, kind of similar thing. I love watching Joe Rogan. I love watching London Real and some other podcasts. And so I looked, hey, does Hawaii have a podcast similar to, in fashion to Joe Rogan or London Real? No, we didn't. We had podcasts, but nothing to the quality extent that they had, where you had a one-on-one interview where you're really getting to the depth of a guest, and the video quality is good, the audio quality is good, and it comes out, hopefully weekly. And so that didn't exist, right? I couldn't find it. There were, like I said, there were other podcasts that were okay, and there are some really great podcasts out there from Hawaii. But when I didn't find what I was looking for, I said, hey, okay, create it.
Sure. Those are, I think, in my career too, I think the ideas that I felt like I wanted the most are the ones that I had the most passion about to finish and to actually like build it and get it to a place where it has some commercial viability. And so kudos, 60 plus episodes later.
60 plus episodes. Yep. Still going. Fun fact on podcasts, most don't make it past 7 episodes.
That's so funny. I was looking at my podcast the other day. It's called the John and Alex Show. The John and Alex Show. And it was just a side idea. I think it was like the start of a year, of course, hey, let's start a podcast. And there was this girl, Alex Roth. And at the time she was doing communications for Malama Honua. And I liked her style. I was like, hey, we should do a little talk story, a little 30-minute thing. So we did it for like 8 weeks, where we had 8 episodes, whatever it was. And that was it. It was like, it's not easy to keep up with a weekly schedule. And so, I think over the years producing content, we get better at scheduling things. We get better at production flow. We're shooting like 10 episodes at once. Then we cruise for a couple months.
No, you can't cruise.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Well,
that's
exactly.
the hard part.
You don't have to find like 12 more. Well, maybe you should.
You should.
First episode from EO's masterclass on how to build a podcast.
Yeah. So I got to change up the podcast a little bit and try to find more ways or an avenue to turn it into something lucrative where it is, commercially viable and it does have actual tangible value as opposed to just talking as a hobby.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you that the common denominator, whether it's like when I'm talking to a company, whether it's a startup or it's an $11 billion corporation, it always comes down to content. And so I think that you have the surface area, you've built the surface area up, if not in experience, in thought leadership. You could probably recut a lot of the stuff. You can reimagine it. But you've got the stuff that people are trying to create and make, and you've got the consistency of it. And so now you're in a really fun place where you can start to understand the impact you've made. You can start to understand what your product is and who's watching, what makes it exciting for them, and, you know, dial that in.